Bootstrapped Web, episode. Oh, now we're live. Okay. This is Bootstrapped Web, episode 54. It's the podcast for you, the founder who learns by doing as you bootstrap your business online. And today we are looking back at our progress in 2014, and then we'll lay out our goals for 2015 and also how you guys can do the same. So, as always, I'm Brian.
And I'm Jordan. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too. So
I'm scared of it, actually, if I'm going to be entirely honest. Looking back at my 2014, it's not all sunshine and roses.
Me too. It's always like that. But I was just thinking about this today. I was talking to my wife this morning, and it just kind of reminds me of like how much I love what I do, and I think you feel the same, and probably everybody else listening to this. I mean, I love this time of year in a way, like December, January, just thinking through these goals and like kind of stressing out about these big goals in a way, but like in a good way, like really like starting to envision like where's this thing going to be 12 months from now. It's really exciting and inspiring to be able to do something for a living that allows us to like literally make our future. And I just think of like everyone else out there in that salary job, year in, year out. Of course, there's the pros and cons of the security of that and all that, but this time of year they're not thinking about any of this stuff. They're thinking it's just another year. What are we doing for New Year's Eve?
Right. Hopefully they have off, and yeah, it's an amazing thing that we deal with and we put ourselves through. But yeah, this time of year creates a reconciliation. Like it's time to look at yourself in the mirror and see if you're satisfied with your progress, if you are living up to your expectations, and what you plan to do for the next year to make sure that at the end of 2015 you can look in the mirror and say, I kicked ass. I did the best that I could. I feel good about it. So it's a great time.
Yeah, totally. And I think there are always things that like goals that you set and you don't quite hit them, and then there are goals that you smash out of the park. It's always going to be that way every year for everyone, even the people who are killing it. And what I just love about this thing that we do is we control it. It's totally in our control, and we can pinpoint why something didn't happen or why something did happen, and that's what keeps this whole thing exciting. So, all right, so let's get right into it, but we'll do some really quick updates because we've got a lot of other stuff to cover. So, what's your update this week?
Along the same lines as we're talking about the end of the year, what I'm doing recently is just thinking through the different scenarios and different options that I have in front of me for the next year. So I think everyone does this or should do it with their business. Say, okay, so I've been going along a particular path, a particular strategy, doing something, going in a direction. And this is a good opportunity to look at that and say, is that what I want to continue doing? You never only have one option. You have infinite number of options in front of you. Most of them are limited by your creativity and your ability to envision how you can put things together in different ways. But all these different options is what I've been thinking through, and then at the same time I see the end of the year as like a deadline. So got to make a decision, pick an option, pick a scenario, pick a strategy by the end of the year, and then stick with it for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so then you can hit the ground running in January, right?
Right, because if nothing else, the clarity and conviction that comes along with just making a decision is healthy. Like, you should not just constantly flip-flop all over the place. We've all been guilty of it, myself included. But I like the idea of trying to hold myself to one particular path, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with 2014 and looking back on it, and I think that's what we'll get into in the next section. So that's my update, just thinking through different options and seeing the end of the year as almost like a deadline by which I have to make a decision and then commit myself to that path for at least the next year.
Cool. So what am I working on right now? I'm actually adding a productized service on top of my productized service. So in Restaurant Engine, I do consider that itself a productized service because we do so many different things manually. But I'm adding a new it's like an add-on service. I guess it's kind of like a higher tiered plan on Restaurant Engine, which will be where we'll actually manage the email newsletters, like creating and sending them, and social media updates and some SEO optimization work. Just doing that manual service. It's been something that customers have been asking for a while, and after doing the productized course, I kind of want to really dog food a lot of the actual strategies and tactics that I put into that course and really put it into action, like as like a new project. So I'm doing that in Restaurant Engines. Today, just kind of working on the material to like showcase on the site, and then working on like the onboarding form that customers will fill out to get started with this service. I have about 5 or 10 of our existing customers who told me, when we roll it out, they're ready to go. So that'll be nice, and we'll kind of roll that out like piecemeal, maybe 5 customers or so at a time, and doing it myself for the first month, and then I'm going to be putting the systems in place so I can have my team carry it all out. And that's the immediate project. And let's see, the other thing on my update is I'm currently on the 2-week jump start of the Bulletproof diet. I've been reading through Dave Asprey's the Bulletproof Diet book, which is awesome. I mean, I'm drinking the Bulletproof coffee. I'm eating all the grass-fed butter, the grass-fed beef, all of it.
Yeah, I've only gone so far. I've only gotten so far as the coffee, but the diet, that sounds interesting.
My wife and I spent a fortune at Whole Foods over the past week or two. So
yeah, that happens.
I feel great, honestly. This is really, for me. I've been like very up and down with health over the last couple of years. Eating and exercising, gain some weight, and then I'll lose some weight, and then I'll gain it, and then I go to the gym for a month, and then I don't see the gym for 6 months. It's been the story of my life, pretty much.
Huh. I mean, you look good, as awkward as that sounds in a podcast. You look healthy. You can tell in people's faces and their eyes and skin, if they're eating well and if they feel energetic.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel right now. I definitely feel focused too. I mean, the Bulletproof coffee, dude, this is for real.
It's good. That's good.
I mean, it's not even like super caffeinated. It's just the ongoing focus that you have like throughout the whole day. Without that crash. I mean, I sound like an infomercial for it right now, but
whatever. As long as it works, who cares?
Seriously. So I mean, I'm sticking with it. I feel like this is the first health change that I'm making that is really starting to stick with me. Like I can see it just a weekend. That it's working. So.
Cool.
That is the update. So hey, earlier today you shot me an IM with this Theodore Roosevelt quote. This was awesome. You want to tell us about this?
I did. As we were talking about this episode, and we were just kind of getting pumped up on entrepreneurship in general, and the highs and lows and how difficult it is and how good it feels and all these different things combined. So what it brought to mind is a quote from Teddy Roosevelt. Most people have probably heard this before, but I think it's an appropriate time to revisit it as we talk about the end of the year. So here goes. This is from Teddy Roosevelt. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or how the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And I think that's an apt description of the internal and mental emotional workings of entrepreneurship, and it's inspiring not to call people who have a salary cold dead souls, but at the very least, as an entrepreneur, you can feel good that you are in the fight and you're in the arena, and at the worst, if you did fail, you sure should give it a try.
Yep. I mean, we're alive. That's what we're doing. It's awesome. This is a great quote. I'm gonna do something with this. I don't know, print it out, put it on the wall, something. I
Yeah.
gotta keep it in front of me. That's for sure. All
Cool.
right,
So let's
so
we're going to talk about looking back at 2014. We're going to talk about the upcoming year. But before we do that, before we dive into talking about ourselves, we wanted to just kind of go over some tips. And Brian is better at this than I am. So we want to go over some tips on how to set your goals for the next year in an effective way. So talk to me, Brian. How do you do this properly? I have not done a good job of this.
all right, and this is the kind of thing that I get a little bit better at every year, and I think I did okay this year. I did a little bit worse last year. Anyway, so I think the first tip is start by looking back at your entire past year, and at the end of the year, you have this feeling of like, all right, it's not as good as I want it to be, or it's pretty good, or it's great, but really go back and especially go back to like the first quarter of the past year, because that's a pretty long way back. You got to think back, like things are actually very different today than they were 8 months ago, 10 months ago, and really give that some thought, and maybe go back to your previous blog posts, or if you do any kind of like journaling, or just like look at whatever any kind of records of things that you were working on from 10, 12 months ago.
I like my inbox. I like to dig into my inbox.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is feeling.
Great idea there. Look at previous emails. Just see what was on your mind 12 months ago, and you'd be amazed at how far you've come.
Yeah, we overlook. We set a goal, and if we get there, it's behind us immediately. We feel good for a second, and then we're consumed with the next issue, the next piece of stress. Doing this really shows you how much progress you've made, and also shows you if you were working on the right thing or not.
Totally.
Sometimes I look back at emails and I'm embarrassed for myself that I was not heading in the right direction, thinking about the wrong things, talking about the wrong things, and then sometimes I look at it like, this was so raw, and this thing was nothing. It was just thoughts.
Yeah.
And now it's different. It's alive. It's running. It's got customers. It has money. It has issues. So it gives you both perspectives on the good and the bad of what you were working on, what you were thinking about.
Totally. The next tip that I have here is keep your list. So now we're looking ahead to goals for the upcoming year. Keep your list of goals short, but keep them detailed. And so here's what I mean by that. I think as entrepreneurs, I've struggled with this big time myself. We tend to try to bite off way more than we can chew, and we get excited at this time of year. At least I do, thinking about all these big goals and things that I want to do in the next 12 months. But you got to scale that back. You got to think through each of those big goals and then get detailed. Like, all right, what's really involved in that? Like, okay, do you want to build an online course? Well, what's really involved there? Like, what do you got to do recording and writing and talking to customers and all this stuff? Or you want to launch a SaaS app? All right, there's development time, there's customer development, there's marketing, there, technology. There's a lot goes into everything. Not to scare you away from and make you do nothing. You've got to just pick one or two big things to work on. And I think that if it's difficult for you to decide between 4 or 5 different things and then cut out 3 of them, that's a good thing. You're on the right track. If it's actually hard for you to say, okay, that big thing that I want to do, that shiny object, I'm not going to do it this year. I'm just going to say, like, it's not happening in 2015. I think that's a smarter way to go.
Yeah, it's like managing your daily to-do list.
Yeah.
If you put too much on it, nothing's going to get done. The only thing that's going to get done are the things you can read and say, oh, I can do that in 5 minutes. Let me work on that, instead of the meaningful things. So
totally.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and the next tip I have here is keep your goals measurable and or tangible. And what I mean by that is, actually write down your goals. I'll talk in a minute about journaling, but write them down and then specify, like, what does that goal actually look like. So if it's like growth or financial related, then what's the number? What's the number that you have to hit? If it's like launch related, then what is that thing that you will launch or build, and what does that consist of? That doesn't exist today. If it's like improvements, then what can you actually point to a year from now that you can say like yes or no, that did not get improved, or that was definitely improved.
Right, like I don't know how to do this, and now I do know how to do it.
Yeah.
Or this didn't exist, and now it does. Or yeah, I like using numbers because they're objective. You say, I want 100 customers by the end of the year, and right now I'm at 10. How do I get to 100? How many do I need to average every month? How many? It takes away all the words and assumptions and possible meanings. It just narrows things down. Then you spend the rest of the year figuring out how to get there, but at least you have a goal in mind. I think this is the smartest and most powerful thing about Groove's blog, right?
Yeah.
The journey to 100K.
Right.
You know, I didn't follow it that avidly, but holy shit, you have to admire that. They just set a numerical goal, and they started, I don't know when they started, 30K or something. And throughout the year, every once in a while, I would just, come across one of their blog posts, and I would just see the progress, and I'd be like, that's, And at first, I think I insulated myself. I protected my own ego by saying, oh, well, they're funded and they have a team and all this, But damn, that's when they got to that 100K.
There's nothing easy about that.
Right. That's admirable.
Totally.
And I think that must have motivated them internally, and focused everyone's attention. I think, straightforward numbers can really do that.
Yep. The next two tips here, they're kind of the same idea, but I'll just say them both. Start with the end in mind. I think we've covered this quite a bit in a lot of our previous episodes, but just really try to transport yourself 12 months into the future. What does that exactly look like? Yes, we could just look at revenue numbers and say all right, I'm pulling in double the revenue than I am today, but paint a picture. I like to think very visually about this stuff. What does the team look like? What does the product look like? What am I working on every day? Waking up, getting into the office. What are the projects that I'm working on in December of 2015?
Yeah.
I think it just helps get into that mindset of all right, now let's think back. What are the projects that I'll need to work on in order to make that workday a reality?
Yeah, it's powerful. The visualization.
Yep.
And I try to think about it matched up with my tangible goals. I say, if this company's making 50K a month, right? Let's just say that's my goal for the end of the year. Well, what does that look like? Is that me sitting in my home office by myself? Is that realistic? And if not, then try to visualize it. Maybe it looks very different and feels very different, and my day-to-day is very different, and almost get prepared mentally for it. I'm actually going to get an office, and I'm going to have to leave, and I'm going to have to go meet people and hire them, and right, so it helps to start to visualize a powerful process.
Yeah, and then the next thing here, to kind of push yourself to get to that point is of course to think big. And if you go back to one of our episodes in the 30s, I think it was one of the first one that you and I did together. I think it's all about thinking big. So the idea here is just to really push yourself. The tendency, I think, maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but there's a tendency to make your goals as realistic and achievable as possible. Set some goals that you're going to hit, but I think that's a good starting point. But then you gotta stretch it. You got to stretch it a little bit farther than that, and just kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone. You got to accept that in order to get these goals, you're going to have to do things that you're uncomfortable with.
Yeah, I like to call it realistic but ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
So chances are you won't get there, but if you go anywhere near it, you'll be in good shape, right?
Yeah.
If I set a goal to have 10,000 paying customers in Karduk by the end of the year, it's too far. Right, you've gone into la la land,
right,
and you won't be working on the right things. But if I say 500 paying customers, that's ambitious, but it is in the realm of possibility. So let's work toward that. How do you bang home 50, 75 paying customers a month? You're gonna have to do things very differently than the way I'm doing them now.
Yeah, it's almost like a kind of a negotiation with yourself, right? You want to
I like that.
You want to come in, high, or you come in low, whatever side of the negotiation you're on. Think you have the real number in your mind. You say 500, but you'll be happy with 300.
Right. I like that. That's a great analogy. This is one of my favorite things about working with Israelis, right? So I'm from Israel, so I just know a lot of Israeli people and family and all that. Israeli entrepreneurs are so ridiculously ambitious that they set their goals so preposterously high that you almost like dismiss them, and then they go out and achieve half of it, and you're like, how in the hell did you do that? But it's because they that negotiation with themselves, they go high. They convince
Yeah.
themselves that they're capable of doing things that nobody else thinks they're capable of. And I think that's a good mindset to get into. So
Yeah.
ambitious, but not you got to find that balance within yourself. But definitely,
Totally.
man, and we're not in this to create a job for ourselves. Like
Yep.
think big. If it happens, hallelujah. If it doesn't happen, keep fighting.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this last one here this is a little bit more tactical, and that is keep a journal. Now that sounds a little like I don't know, whatever the word is, but I started doing this sometime in 2013. I think near the end of 13, and I, to be honest, I didn't see a whole lot of value in writing down thoughts completely privately in a journal until now. Until now that I'm about a year or so into doing this on a semi-regular basis, now is like it's so valuable because now I can go back and look. What was I thinking 6 months ago? What was I thinking 12 months ago? I wrote down my 2014 goals in that journal, and then I even like revised them like a month later, and like I went through all these changes and things happened, and I wrote. And what I basically use the journal for is I use it to when I'm really struggling with a hard decision. I'll start jotting down like pros and cons. I'll start thinking through like what I really think, but maybe won't say out loud, and then I'll write it down. I just know nobody's going to read this thing, so it just helps me think through some thoughts and consider different options and look and think ahead and think big picture, um, and also just be really honest about like what's going wrong in this business right now. Um, so I found that very helpful. I use an app called Day One app, which is it's really easy to use, works on all the different devices, and it's great. So and even there were like 4 or 5 weeks at a time where I just wouldn't even write in it, and I think that's fine. A lot of people have like a daily habit or a weekly habit of journaling. I think that's great. I wish I could work up to that. I tend to just use it like when it's on my mind, and I'm like, oh, I just write a few thoughts down. But it's always on my mind this time of year, thinking through these like annual goals. So.
Right. I like that idea. I haven't had discipline or convince myself to do it, but you hear it often enough from enough successful people that there's got to be something to it. Right. It never hurts to write. It's always good for you. It gathers your thoughts. So to write in a private way, it's hard to write a blog post and be completely 100% raw and honest. But when you do it for yourself, I think that's where you get the most out of it. So
what I really like about it is when I'm writing a blog post, I'm editing so much. Even as I'm writing, I'm self-editing. I'm hitting that delete button all the time. I'm rearranging the order of how I'm saying things. It's a constant. I spend way more time editing than I actually do writing on the blog. But when I'm writing in Day One, I make a conscious effort to literally never hit the backspace delete button.
right, spelling errors, this, that, that's not the focus. The
If you
focus
were
is
to read
just
a lot of my entries in there, like literally, I read them. I'm like, what does that even say? I don't even know what that means. Like, a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's just kind of like stream of consciousness. Like, it is very business related. I'm not into like personal journaling so much, but it's just like, what am I thinking? And then it's amazing, like when you actually get it into words on the page, it almost makes like the obvious choice just come straight to the top,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
It's like being forced to talk about a business problem, like with friends or a mastermind group or something.
group.
As you're saying it, you already know what the answer is because you start to look at it from the other people's point of view, and you say, "Oh, I can hear myself."
Yeah.
I already know what it. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. But when it's
All right,
like
nice. So
festering
I like
inside your mind and keeping you up at night, it's never going to make any sense. So.
excellent. So I like those good tips. So look back at the previous year. make goals for the coming year, but not too many of them. Keep them detailed. Have tangible goals. Be able to visualize where you're trying to get to. Push yourself to think big, and then commit to keeping a record of what happens throughout the year. So, at the end of the year and along the way, you can actually keep track of your progress. And
Mm-hmm.
all right, cool. So,
All right, so let's get into recapping what we achieved in 2014, and I guess we'll go one by one, each of me and then you,
Sure.
and then you and then me.
Yeah,
let's
and
get
I didn't write them down like you, so
Okay.
I don't have the benefit of doing this the right way. Right, goes back to what we just said in the previous one. If I wrote them down, I would have a much better perspective, but I don't. So I'm forced to kind of look back, given where I am now.
Yeah.
So that's there's one lesson for me right there.
Well, you'll have this episode to look back on a year from now. So.
and it'll be public. So I'm writing it down. I'm writing these down right now.
So let's go with the with kind of like the grading system that I heard on Startups for the Rest of Us last week when Rob Walling and Mike Tabor went through their goals or their 2014 recap. They used 0 and then 0.5 and 1 to say either it happened, it kind of happened, or it did happen. So okay, so let's kick it off. Should I do the first one?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, and this comes straight out of that journal that I was talking about. I wrote this down. I said, hire key people and focus on processes and remove the busy work from my daily schedule. And I said, within 6 months, my role should dramatically change from what it is today. And when I wrote that, today was, I think, like December or January, a year ago. I do give myself a 1 on this. I during 2014, I hired a salesperson to handle all of our inbound consultations. I hired our second customer support person as well. That helped like completely remove the load of dealing with customer tickets and dealing with those with all the sales and consultation calls. I wrote a ton of new procedures to basically like remove myself from the operations on Restaurant Engine, so the service really truly like runs itself. And I was reminded of that several times through the year. I mean, another huge thing that happened to me is my wife and I welcomed our first daughter, this year in March, and for the week there I was off. And then I spent 3 days a week at home watching her. I mean, having these systems in place and the team in place to not only have things covered on the service end, but actually bring on new customers when I'm occupied, changing diapers and things like that. It's been huge. It's been a huge weight off my shoulders, and just I feel pretty happy with how the business actually keeps churning when I don't have to be there.
Yeah, objectively looking from my point of view, from an outsider, I think that might be the single biggest accomplishment of the year for you.
I probably agree with that.
Right, it's like you made it into a business that functions and lives on its own. And there's
a big but coming, which I'll get to in the next one. But yeah, so where are you at? What's the first thing that you look back on?
So I'm going to start. Generally speaking, I'm mixed on 2014. Right, I look back. I cannot honestly say I'm super happy with it, and I can't honestly say that I'm disappointed. So I'll start off with something good. Right? Why not? So the first goal of 2014 is to basically launch a SaaS. Right, that's what I've been aiming at. And in 2013, I played around with a bunch of different ideas, and I talked to different people, and I explored different things, and then I finally decided on CartHook and the idea behind it, and the goal was to launch and get paying customers. So, man, that is a freaking lift. That is a large rock to put in motion, and I have to be happy about that. I have to be satisfied with the fact that I went from, I don't know how to develop, so I have to rely on other people, all these different factors, but I went from not having a software as a service launched to having one launched with paying customers.
Yeah.
So, right, if I was going to look at like a big picture goal, but specific, as in like it's actually launched and has paying customers, that is the one I think I can be most happy with, most proud of, and where I am now that I'm like in it, I don't think about that. I think about all the issues that are in front of me.
Of course.
But looking back, that's is a great accomplishment.
It
So
really
that's
is. And like you said, you looked at me on Restaurant Engine, me looking at you, outsider looking in the mastermind groups and being on this podcast with you. That is kind of like the big thing that I see and the big progression that I saw from a year ago. I remember before you even launched CardHook to today. I mean, it's it's the dream for anyone out there who is trying to launch that first SaaS or thinking about it. You're in that position that so few people who actually launch it actually get to, and it's nothing to take lightly. It's extremely hard to get recurring subscribers on any product. So.
Yeah, so that's the good one. That's the one I look at and I say, if you're going to grade on the system, that's a 1. Like, okay. Like ignoring the imperfections and all these other things, going from 0 to 1, from nothing to something, I'm happy with. So that's the first big one of 2014 for me.
Yep.
The rest aren't quite as rosy. How about you? What's the next one?
So the next thing that I wrote down in my goals for 2014, and this is kind of like the big but at the end of the win of automating and systemizing Restaurant Engine. I wrote down Restaurant Engine should be on autopilot and growing 3 times faster than it is today. I wrote down here that I'm giving myself a 0.5 on this. Really, I think I should give myself a 0 because it's not growing 3 times faster than it was a year ago. I was really focused on the growth rate. I still am today, and it's not. It's growing slightly faster. We're adding slightly more new customers every month.
But the growth doesn't increase every month.
It increased slightly over the course of 2014, but it's not at the target that I wanted it to be. And I guess what happened was I had 2 big goals for Restaurant Engine. Like, one was to remove myself completely from it, all the systems and processes, and I think that was a big win. But I also had the same goal at the same time. I had this goal but we also need to grow and grow fast and start adding lots and lots more customers than we are today. And in my mind, that was a great goal, but it didn't happen. I guess I spent way too much time of my time writing those procedures and hiring people and getting the systems all ironed out, and I didn't spend nearly enough time on marketing, even though it feels like I'm never ending on marketing. I didn't. Maybe I just had the wrong strategies. Maybe I didn't push hard enough or take enough risks, or I don't know what it was, but I would have liked to see it grow faster today than it is. So that's where it's at.
So here's a question for you. In some ways, you can look at put it on autopilot and increase the rate of growth. You can see those two as being in conflict.
Right. Exactly.
Like how do you put something on autopilot and have it grow? I think what's the more granular, like accurate way to look at it? Because they're not really in conflict. Is it that you want to automate a large portion of it so that you can focus on growing, or do you want someone else to grow it? Right? It's like they don't have to be in conflict, but at first glance, it's like how do you do both at the same time?
Okay, so I think that a year ago, in my mind, I was thinking like whatever systems we have in place now, in terms of sales and marketing, which is mainly content marketing and organic referral traffic coming in. However we're getting customers now, that's how we're going to continue to get customers for a long time to come, and we're going to just somehow ramp that up.
And that'll just go up.
And that'll just keep going up, and it didn't. It kind of just stayed the same level of growth every month. Yeah, and I think I don't want to jump ahead to my goals for 2015. I have a clearer picture of but yeah, I think there is a separation between like
Mm-hmm.
automating the service and like if I'm taking a vacation or if I'm in the hospital with my wife giving birth for a week, the business does not fall apart. I don't lose money because of that.
Right.
You know?
Hugely important.
Yeah.
And then the second part of it.
And the second part of it is
tricky.
the sales and marketing, and I think that's where you need to come back into the business and work on the new systems, and this
Right.
gets into my 2015 stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then automate those, and then
Right.
remove yourself from those.
Right.
So it's,
all right. So look, 2014, automate the internal processes. 2015, automate the marketing and outreach and sales, and yeah, that would be right. That would be a great accomplishment, and one that would not work as well if you hadn't spent 2014 putting together the systems for the other. It's like if you look at it as a 2-year plan, you're right on track in many ways.
That's if you call it a 2-year plan. In my mind, it was a 12-month plan. So
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if everything takes twice as long as you expect, then
Yep.
that's it, to be expected. All right. Cool. That's interesting.
Yep. So what's next for you?
So this is a failure, right? In short term. So my next goal for 2014 was to create a secondary stream of income to both supplement my income personally and to provide capital to invest in CardHook. So that was my thinking. I tried to mitigate risk. I tried to handle the situation in front of me as best as possible. So at the beginning of 2014, at the beginning of the life of a software as a service, you broke as a joke. I mean, cool, you got it launched and you have paying customers, but you're not making any real money. And any money you're making, you're reinvesting. And I mean, you're trying to cover expenses, right? Let's be serious. Like, if you can get profitable with a SaaS, paying yourself a salary within 6 months or so, you're kicking butt. You're doing great. So knowing that, I looked at 2014 and I said, okay, so this thing's going to get off the ground, but I can't justify spending 100% of my time on it and hoping it all works out, and the game of chicken I'm playing financially to get really profitable to more than cover my expenses and income and salary and everything as soon as possible. I didn't like the risk of hoping that worked out.
Yeah,
right.
Of course. I mean, yeah, I think balancing, multiple income streams as you're starting to build something up and bootstrap it, I think that's natural.
Yeah, you got to deal with it. You're right. I'm not 22 and I can't just go live in my parents' basement and cut my expenses down to nothing. I got a family and kids and all that. So my approach to 2014 was, okay, get CardHook off the ground, spend half my time on CardHook, the other half my time created an additional stream of revenue that I can do with only half my time, right? And objectively looking back, that failed. That didn't work.
I don't know about that. Knowing the things that you worked on, you launched a course that made sales, and you did plenty of consulting work that made sales. So
yes, so that was good, but I guess what didn't work, what was technically a failure, was I was hoping that right now, in 2015, I would have both up and running, and one was kicking off enough money to supplement my
monthly revenue.
Exactly right. And so maybe I made a decent amount of money with the additional stream of revenue, but I didn't create a stream of revenue that now can fund everything. And I'm in, I want it to be sitting pretty right now and say I've got 20 or 30K coming in from this business. I spent half my time on. I've got a few employees on it. It's kicking money off every month, and CardHook now is an asset that's up and running, and I can invest in and work on and have very little risk.
Well, I might give you at least a 0.5, if not a 7.5 there, because if you look at that goal, to launch 3 separate businesses, a SaaS business, a consulting business, and an info product business, all making predictable monthly revenue within 12 months from 0 to predictable monthly revenue, that you'd be Superman.
Right, and maybe I should have admitted that and understood that at the beginning, and I shouldn't have tried to do 3, and I should have waited, or whatever it is. Like I don't
But that's
second
the
guess the
thing with
decision.
consulting work is you can just kind of bring it in for a couple months at a time, and then ramp it down.
Yes, yes. I think overall, you're right. Call it a point 0.5. It's not a 0. It's just that I didn't create the situation that I wanted, and so I look at, generally speaking, when I visualize that goal, I see that as a failure, but it's not a 0 because yes, I brought in income and I learned a ton, and I met a lot of people through the process, and it definitely increased my value and skill level and all these other things. But yeah, so that was the other big one for 2014 that I look back on.
Cool. Okay, so the next one, I've got a 0 here. And this is kind of a minor background one, I guess. But so I wrote down beginning of last year that I wanted to build a marketing funnel for my first book, Design for Conversions, which I released back in 2013. I give myself a 0. I did not end up creating that marketing funnel. And by the way, what I mean by that is, yes, I launched the book in 2013, but I don't have anything really pointing to it other than like a single link on my website. I don't have any kind of like free crash course, or I'm not really doing much in terms of like guest blogging to point to that, or running paid ad campaigns. None of that. It's just sitting there. So I wanted to, soon after the launch and sometime in 2014, to create some kind of like free course and create some kind of marketing funnel so that I can get some kind of ongoing sales for that. But that didn't happen. I got way too busy. Sales still kind of like trickle in, like very low in terms of, just people finding it through on my site. But
Can you define why you didn't do it? Is it time? Well, instead of me making assumptions, just open-endedly.
yeah,
Why?
time and also like I didn't even make time to plan it into my schedule.
Why though?
I think because the amount of time that I spent creating the book and gearing up for launch and doing that whole launch back in 2013 and then launching it, as soon as that was done, I was like, crap, I need to get right back on Restaurant Engine because I just spent 3 months on this other thing. I got to get my focus back. I was also in a weird place where involved in too many different things, and finances are tight, and I was like, work on the thing that makes money, and don't work on the thing that's not making a lot of money. That was where I was at.
Yeah.
And then,
right, well, which makes perfect sense.
and then what happened was like, so that like immediate aftermath of launching the book, you got like 3 or 4 months there. I'm diving back into other stuff. Now you're 4 months out, 5 months out. Now I'm thinking of like the next thing. I don't want to go back to this Design for Conversions thing that I'm talking about new. Now I'm thinking about like content marketing and
right, you've evolved.
And so the lesson that I take from that is build at least somewhat of a marketing funnel before you even launch that product. And that's what I really took into doing the productized course. Is before I even did the course, I first launched a free course, which continues to run today, and that's that does a bunch of things. That first created early interest in the topic. That's what actually let me know that I should even create the course in the first place. Was the crash course was doing so well, and number two is I can do the whole 2 or 3 month work on the course, launch it, produce it, get it out there, and on day one post launch, I still have this little engine that's bringing in new subscribers and funneling them toward the course. So I'm happy that's in place. Of course, there's more that I will do when it comes to marketing for Productize, but at least that's in place, and I think it paid off. I would say. So it launched in October, and there was like a launch discount and everything. But then in November and December, I had a number of other sales at full price, and I think that's because people are coming through that marketing funnel that's already in place.
Right. So it's almost like you've bundled it as part of the work to do for the course.
Yeah.
Right.
And I did. That was like the first thing that I did.
Right. They're not. Yeah. That's interesting that it's first. It's not just like right in my mind. It was like, oh, so you bundle them. So doing the course and doing the marketing work is part of doing the work for the course and do it all at once.
Yes.
But
Do
even
it while
even
it's all
better,
fresh too.
right? Even better than that, and I think, yeah, smarter is to do it first.
Yep.
Yep. And I made the exact same mistake as you when I launched my course. It did pretty well. I did one webinar and made sales and was happy, and people got good value out of it. And then I don't have a marketing funnel for it, right? And now I was projecting onto you when I was alluding to the fact that maybe there's a reason underneath everything that you didn't do it. I know for me, it's because I don't have big confidence in it being like a big kick-ass success. So it's like I've almost justified I shouldn't do this work because it's not like a huge potential moneymaker, and so don't go back and spend time on it. So at least in my mind, I think to myself, if I really thought that I could make, 5 or 10 grand a month off this one course, I would go and spend, the 2-3 weeks it takes to think through and put together a whole funnel.
Well, I think another reason why I didn't come back to really working on design for conversions post-launch was that's when my audience started to grow. Is around the time of that launch. I think I had something like 300 email subscribers when I launched that book in 2013, and in 2014, the audience started to grow a little bit more, and I was able to understand who they were, and also I was evolving and doing different things and talking about different topics. So I didn't see the whole topic of design for conversions fitting in with where the audience was coming from and serving them as well as I could. So
yeah, you just did it right. You just did it better than the previous time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So what's next on your list?
Let's take a look here. Okay, so this is something I look back on. It's also mixed, but in reality, I objectively have to give it a 1. So for many years as an entrepreneur, I sat in my room and didn't talk to anyone. And I wasn't in public, and I didn't write, and I didn't do a podcast, and I didn't put myself out there at all. And I was fine with that, and I convinced myself that I enjoy anonymity and just want to get rich and not deal with anything, right? Basically. This past year, I decided to just put myself out there into the public sphere, just into the friggin' internet, man, and just throw my hat in the ring and whatever other cliches you want to, use to name whatever the hell the process would be to just put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And I had just never done any of it. The first step I took was the mastermind group that we're part of that was posted on Mixergy, and like you wrote an application, and then somehow I, got chosen, as did you, and then we joined the mastermind, and that was like the first step. That was the first time I just put myself out there.
Yeah, although that's still private. The mastermind group is private, but I guess you mean like engagement.
Still a huge, exactly right. It's still a huge shift for me because everything was internal. I was consuming other people's content and podcasts and stuff, but I never had anything to do with other people. And I just realized that was just a mistake. It's just enough. Okay, so I've been doing one thing a certain way, not getting the results that I want, and now let's change that. I described it to my younger brother in a conversation a while ago that I remember as the world doesn't care about how great you are and how awesome you are and what you can do for them without you going out and proving it. You can't just sit there and be like, but I know all this stuff and I can do all this stuff, and that's not enough. So I decided to kind of take my own advice and say, okay, now let's just do it. But what has happened over the past year is just awesome, and a lot of it I owe to you for inviting me onto the podcast to begin with, and then inviting me to be a co-host. That has been a huge shift, and the other piece of it, which is just an accomplishment in itself that I'm very proud of, is the Mixergy interview.
Yeah, I was going to say the Mixergy interview as well, but yeah, I mean, honestly, the reason why I think it's well worth your time. And the reason why I invited you here on this podcast is because I know how much value you have to share. I mean, you've shared so much value just within our mastermind group, our private group, and just knowing, from your experience and the different type of experience that you have, at least from me and probably from a lot of people in this audience. I learn something new when I talk to you every time, and I think that's, for anyone out there who's in the shadows, in the room alone, thinking about like or just going about your work but not putting yourself out there. Again, it's not so much about yourself, it's giving value to someone else, and kind of, in a way, it's like paying it forward, but then at the end of the day, there's also a return on that investment, building the audience.
Right.
Um,
Right. And
of
that's
course,
the thing that has shocked me the most.
Yeah.
The return is so much more than you expect. And it's not because I'm so special. It's not like that. Everybody has it in them because everyone has their own unique experiences, and you can convince yourself that you are just a beginner and look at all these people, they're so successful and they've done all these ridiculous things and they raise money whenever they bat an eye and they exited their last company, all these things. But they started somewhere too. They started, in the same place that we all did. And if you just convince yourself of that and take the risk, the rewards you get back will surprise you.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's sometimes it's really hard to measure the rewards. Sometimes it's easy to measure the rewards. But I just look at like emails that I receive, or even people emailing me and talking about you, or they're trying to reach you, and sometimes they reach me instead. It's like it's funny, but yeah, I think that's a great goal, and just look outsider looking in. That's a huge change that I've seen for you and your business.
Yep, and it's obviously directly related to the upcoming year to just double and triple and quadruple down on it. It's a no-brainer.
Yep. So let's see.
What's next?
Next up, I had written down write a second book. I thought it was going to be a book. It actually turned out to be a course instead, similar to a book really. So I'll give myself a 1 because that did happen. Actually, Productize definitely blew past any goals. So my goal in terms of revenue for that was to hit 10K, and looks like it'll be I think it is already at least triple that number for 2014 in revenue, and I was really happy with how Productize turned out, and more importantly, just the reaction that I've been getting from the new students going through it, and our private community for the course. It's been really inspiring, and I'm really amped to push that further in the next few months. So.
Yeah, I think that one's a 2.0 if we can do it, because that course, the content, the launch, the preparation, the research was like a culmination of years of preparation. Right? It's learning, it's lessons, it's consuming, it's trying, it's the first course, and then what this one was, it was you putting all the pieces together, and it worked. And
yeah.
It worked, and it brought in money, and it brought in people that are happy and value, and so I think that's a great accomplishment for 2014, and one that should give you the confidence that now you know how to do it, and now you can do it again and bigger and continue down that same path.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to the audience stuff. This is actually the next thing that I had on my list here. I'll just kind of it falls in the same bucket here, and that was to refocus on my audience on CastJam.com, and the number that I've written down was I wanted to grow my email list to 3,000 by the end of 2014. So today in December, the list is actually 4,183. Definitely passed that goal, and that's thanks to I published articles consistently, about 2 articles per month, sometimes more. I published a whole bunch of guest articles on some pretty big blogs. This podcast has been doing really great, since you joined in the last couple of months, definitely picking up traction. But yeah, I mean, going back to the Productize thing, it is out of the work that I did in building this audience, and I think it just comes back to understanding and listening to your people and getting on those calls and asking hard questions and asking them repeatedly and then seeing those trends and the patterns. I tell it to everyone, and I've heard it 1,000 times myself, and I only started to realize it in 2014. And like the big lesson is, whenever you're unsure, whenever you're struggling, whenever you're hitting a wall, just go back to your audience and talk to them, and things will get easier. It's that simple. And even if you have a very small audience, run traffic to a landing page for your thing that you're thinking about building, and then talk to them about it, and listen to them and see how it fits in, and then just empathize with them, figure out what they're struggling with, and where they want to be a year from now. What's that path that they see themselves going on, and then it's just all about giving them what they need. Just the answer, the solution to their problem, it just reveals itself, and I feel like that's kind of what I was managed to put together in growing the audience this year.
Yeah, it's funny that it takes a certain amount of experience and maturity to admit that you don't know what's best, and to let it come from your potential customers and your audience and the people who are actually looking for a solution. You would think it's backwards, that somebody young with that experience would say, "Oh, I don't really know what I'm doing. Why don't you tell me what I should do?" But it really that comes later. That comes after making the mistakes by making assumptions, and yeah, you'll see the experienced people go about it in a more humble-looking way, but it's just a smarter, more effective way.
Yeah, and I should say, and this kind of goes off a little bit on a tangent here today, but I should say that it's not necessarily like that whole idea extraction concept where like I'm going into this with no clue what my product will be or who it's for. I'm just going to discover what that product should be, and that's not exactly what happened here. But I just think that when it comes to creating content and then teaching certain topics, just the way that I teach it, exactly which points to focus on, how to write copy around it, it did start with something based in my own experience, like productizing a service, and in a way that's why the audience comes in the first place. It's like they connect with me in the first place because of things that I'm working on. And then it's about like giving back and then talking to them and having that like feedback loop to turn it into something that resonates.
Cool. Yeah, that's got to be a 1.0, if not more.
Cool. So anything
I think that's more or less 2014.
Yeah.
Looking backwards. I mean, obviously we can get into a million other things, but I think those are the big points. So let's turn this thing.
Well, the only other bonus that I'd throw into 2014 is just this podcast. I forget if I started it in 13 or 14, but it was basically having like 0 reviews, not many people listening to it for the first like half the year, and then you came in, we started creating these episodes. So thank you for joining, and thank you guys for listening. This has been like a icing on the cake this year, is this podcast and seeing it really gain the traction that it did. So awesome.
Yeah, and thank you for having me, and thank you, for anyone listening. I think what it did is just change the dynamic. It's not that I came in and made it all better. It's that 2 people dealing with the same things. It's just more. Yeah, it just brought energy to it, and it's real. We talk about what's really going on and what we're dealing with, and the more real you can be about your experiences and your struggles and your triumphs and all that, I think that's what just resonates more. So I think all it did is it opened up the dialogue to just like another level of of honesty and of
yeah, exactly.
Hearing somebody else,
somebody's
real life situation.
Yeah, and I invited you here for selfish reasons. I just wanted to change the format and make it more interesting for me to talk every week instead of because I got a little bored there, solo person on the microphone for a while. So
good. I think it worked out.
Cool. So let's look ahead to 2015. What are the goals?
If you want me to kick it off, I think my first and primary goal is to focus on one thing. And 2014 was not focused on one thing. And not that it didn't work out, but now it's time. CartHook has proven itself to be a viable business that people are willing to pay for, and once they pay for it, they're willing to stick around because they continue to get value, and so it has, it has proven itself worthy of of my full 100% attention. So that's by far the biggest thing for 2015, is to put everything else aside. I'll still do some things, but 95% of my time will be dedicated on one thing. And I think that kind of, it's like a test. It's like, all right, no more excuses. Your time isn't split. Let's see what I can do. So it's almost like I'm, trying to prove to myself, okay, let's see what you can do when you focus on one thing.
Yep. Yeah. I think it'll be easy to predict that you're going to see big things when that's the only thing that you're thinking about and working on and focusing on. So yeah, looking forward to that. My first big goal, and this is what I'm working on right now today, heading into January, is build a new marketing funnel for Restaurant Engine / Hotel Propeller. I kind of consider those the same business, but create a new funnel to kind of add on top of what we already have, which is basically an organic content marketing system. Now I'm going to go after, in a big way, a new type of funnel in different acquisition channels. And my goal in the short term, within the first 6 months of 2015, is to make it both profitable and measurable. And that's something that I haven't quite had my finger on for the last couple of years. Is I know what we're doing marketing-wise, but I can't necessarily say, like, all right, when I spend X number of dollars, it results in X number of dollars coming back or X number of new customers. So the first thing is build a profitable, measurable sales funnel, and then second half of the year, by the end of 2015, I want to fully delegate and automate that piece. So this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. First 6 months, it's going to be heavily depend on me, and creating that funnel, refining it, optimizing it, showing up on certain days to make things happen, and then by the second half of the year, whatever has started working, I need to get my team on board and carrying out those processes.
Nice. I think the only thing that I would add to that, I have some experience in this from the e-commerce days, is that I wouldn't expect profitable to come before measurable. I would expect measurable to become a good deal before profitable. If you set out on a marketing initiative where you're spending money, right? So paid acquisition, whatever you want to call it. If you try to be profitable right away and you're not, you might be disappointed and quit, and that would be a mistake. If you set out to make sure that it's really measurable, and so you know where you're spending your money, that will allow you to learn and understand. And if you're anywhere near profitable when you start off, you're in good shape, because if you are measuring things, then you can start to optimize from there until you get profitable. So that's the only thing I would add to that.
That is. Yeah, I mean, that is great advice. The thing that I forgot to say there is, as a result of this new marketing funnel, by the end of 2015, I want to see revenues doubled, if not more. But the goal is double revenue, monthly recurring revenue by end of 2015.
Yeah, I think that's achievable and ambitious. So that's a good healthy mix.
Mm-hmm. What's up for you?
Cool. So for me, I almost lump all of this stuff into like maturity. So the company, CartHook itself, I just wanted to get to a point of a certain level of maturity. So that to me means profitable, right? And that is not just on these expenses that the business itself incurs, but on everything, on salary, on health insurance, just a profitable company. And in addition to that, employees. So it's not just me. So I want to hire my first full-time employee, and at the same time, right, that just goes hand in hand. If you want the company to be profitable, that means it needs to be making enough money to pay me the salary that I want, plus another person, plus all the other expenses that go into it. So I think that's a good goal, because it ensures I'm looking at the bigger picture. That I'm not just happy, hey, CartHook's making 10 grand a month, therefore I am happy. In reality, I want it to be profitable. So if that means that's not 10K, right? If we do the math properly, it's a good deal more than that. If it's paying salaries and everything else, that's and the other thing that profitability does is it takes the pressure off. You're no longer playing chicken. Am I going to run out of money and patience before I get profitable? Once it gets profitable, you can take a deep breath and say, okay, so now at least it's sustainable and I don't have these other forces, and now I'm thinking about things in a very different way.
Yeah, something that keeps sticking in my mind. You said to me a couple months back, you were like, once you get to that, I don't know if you were talking specifically about profitability in this SaaS, but just playing the game of business, like getting to that point where we could just play the game of business, right? Like, because today
Right.
I feel like for me at least, I'm playing the game of survive. Just keep the bills paid. But at some point it's got to become an easier strain, or no longer a strain, so that the only game that you're playing, the only decisions and challenges you're making are like how to improve the business.
Right, and how do you leverage your knowledge as an entrepreneur and as a business person, as opposed to how do I leverage my effort and my skill and these things that are multipliers. So an employee, that is a multiplier. If I didn't do the 3 or 4 hours of work that could be done by somebody else every single day, that would be a huge point of leverage for the business to move faster. And then so it's like backing yourself not out of the business, but ensuring that you are, you think big. You're thinking as a business owner instead of as an employee.
Yep. Cool. So the next big goal that I'm thinking about a lot in 2015 is definitely productize. What I really want to do is I need to record some success stories from the first students who are going through Productize right now. I really want to see their businesses have like a meaningful change in 2015 as a result of something that they learned in the course. And so like how to measure that, by the end of 2015, I want to have at least 5 documented case studies of what other students have done with the material from Productize. So I really want to do a good job of like following up with them and supporting them. I do that in the forum and over email and doing some coaching calls and whatnot. So really just kind of want to see that success happen and do everything that I can to support it. And then at some point in 2015, probably looking around the summertime, I'll be looking to launch kind of what I'm considering like Productize 2.0. So I mean, everybody who's in the course now gets lifetime access, so they always get access to whatever new things come out later. But I have a few different ideas. One specific thing that I want to add to the course material, like a whole section of lessons. And thinking about rolling out some coaching packages around productizing and moving to a productized service, and some kind of like monthly coaching service where I'll help you do that. I'll help you roadmap. I'll give you feedback, and we'll kind of work one-on-one. I'm batting that idea around. I don't know like how many students I'd be able to take on given the schedule, so it would be a very limited thing. So, but we'll see. That'll hopefully happen in mid to late 2015.
Nice. Yeah, I like the idea of coaching and just focusing on Productize itself and using your current students' success to prove to yourself and to the outside world that this thing works and it's even more valuable, and it's the right path to go down. The next piece of things for me is just marketing. So thus far with CartHook, it's been pretty raw. It's been cold emails and interviews and referrals and some partnerships. But same as you, there isn't a repeatable process. And so that's the goal. I mean, the truth is that's the goal for the first quarter of 2015. So an outbound sales process and the content engine that I've just had in mind, and I am so excited to get into, and then backed up by all the stuff that I already know how to do, the funnels and webinars and all that. So that's probably the thing I'm most excited for. It's like the product and the features is almost like, it almost goes without saying. Like that has to evolve or you die. That has to happen. But what I'm looking down, at my plate, I say I'm going to build a marketing engine that reaches out to people in an outbound fashion in a repeatable way, and at the same time starts to build the slow burn that eventually turns into something much more powerful in the content and webinars and blog posts and videos and right. So that's just the marketing side of the business is really what needs to happen in the first quarter of 2015 to go to the next level.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're both working on that at the same time. So
yeah, I agree.
Cool. So, and then on that same note, back to productize. A big goal that I have in 2015 is to build a marketing funnel for it. I have a basic funnel in place. The free productize crash course, which does have some valuable lessons in it on its own, and that's a good introduction to the productize material. At some point I want to redo that and maybe convert it to a video crash course. Right now it's just kind of written lessons. And okay, so like actual monetary goals here is to get to at least $2,000 a month in automatic revenue from productize. So just the automated crash course should produce at least like a handful of sales a month. But I'd also like to do other things like webinars and like joint venture webinars, doing my own and doing like certain events throughout the year that should boost it to at least $5,000 a month in revenue, and just really kind of double down on productize, not necessarily come out with any new products except for maybe like an updated version of productize, but continue to grow that and grow the audience.
Nice. Yeah, that would be fantastic to have that running and kicking off money. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do in 2014 and wasn't really able to. If you can get that done in 2015, it just alleviates so much of the pressure and allows you to focus on what you want to focus on. Not to mention just having more money in your pocket and more money to invest in the business.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's doable. Given what has happened thus far. For me, I guess the last two I can bundle together, and that's like doubling down, tripling down on the whole. I don't know what the terminology is. Personal brand. That sounds obnoxious, but you know what I mean. Like putting yourself out there. More interviews, podcasts, guest posting. Just keep challenging myself to go out there and give as much value as possible, and just hope that that comes back in all these different ways that have started to happen. And right alongside that is to just grow and learn as an entrepreneur. You need to arm yourself with the tools, the ammo to get to the next level. Every time you get to one stage, you have to learn more to get to the next stage. So I want to just keep doing that. It's just have to admit you are far from knowing everything, and so there's no sense in pretending like you're done learning. So that's a big goal for 2015. Just the sophistication, the experience, seeing different situations, and challenging yourself. So that's a big goal for the next year.
Yeah, I constantly have a tough reminder that like I don't know what I'm doing, so I have to learn this again, or I have to learn something new, and happens every month of the year.
Yeah, what's that quote you had from Chase Reeves?
So I was listening to Chase Reeves on Adam Clark's podcast today, and he said, I don't know if he was quoting someone else, but he said, "What got you here won't get you there." And that was that really hit home for me because it's something that I've been thinking about lately. what has been working for you for a while, you have to change. And another similar quote that I heard Ian on Tropical MBA say a week or two ago, he said, you know, in this game that we play, this entrepreneurial game, like if you think back to when you first did something, like you quit your job and you became a freelancer, or you launched your very first product, that was a huge entrepreneurial moment. But so many of us, I feel like in a way, maybe I don't know if this is true or not, but getting to that second or third entrepreneurial moment where you just take a huge risk, you take a huge leap, and do something that takes you right out of your comfort zone in order to get to that, to get across that gap, to get to the next level. You got to do that, at least once a year or so, and so these two quotes just really got me thinking that that things have to change in 2015, and for me that's going to mean like taking more risks and doubling down on things in bigger ways than I've done in the past, and being okay with if the data doesn't support. So, like, if things aren't working right away, just stick with it and refine it and improve it. So that's a big thing that I'm looking at in 2015 is like what got me here with Restaurant Engine and with anything else won't necessarily get me to where I need to be in 2015.
Yeah, I think that's applicable for for anyone's current situation. If you're just starting out, what you've done thus far is not going to get you there, and if you are, if you're in the early stages, regardless of where you are, you have to go toward those scary things that you don't know anything about.
Yeah, and like this is something else that I wanted to really improve for myself along these same lines is I need to get better at seeking feedback and guidance from others. And I think I do that with people I know, like advisors, mastermind group friends, but I need to seek out other, like more people and people who are a little bit farther along than me, or maybe just have like different experience than I do. I just constantly struggle with this, like, because I look at people who are farther ahead or pretty well known and whatnot, and like I'd love to like pick their brains and ask them for advice, but I always struggle with, I know how busy they are. I know how busy I am. I don't have time to just hop on a call with anyone,
Yeah.
And so it's like how do you do that, And it's so I don't know. I maybe it means like attending more conferences and just getting out there and talking to more people, but I just need to get more feedback and advice.
Yeah, I think that's a great goal. I don't know how you do it. I mean, look, how have we done it thus far? I don't know. We just did it. We just tried. We just asked. We just emailed or talked or asked for a favor, or it just doesn't hurt to do it. And I like the idea of always making sure that you look around the room and you're last. You're in last place.
Yeah.
I like that idea and that pressure of saying I am the least successful person in this room or in this mastermind call or on whatever it is, and that pressure that you have to start lifting yourself up toward the people around you. It's a true thing. I don't know about the whole your income is the average of the 5 people you know best. That whole thing. I don't know if that's true these days. But surrounding yourself with people that are further ahead is better than surrounding yourself with people and feeling good about yourself that you are, the best among the group.
Yeah, I mean it's weird. Like if I think back 2 or 3 years ago, I remember like doing like cold email outreach to people who are more well known and asking them, hey, can I pick your brain or can I ask you a few questions over email? And I actually did that pretty regularly back then, and then I stopped doing it. Like now I don't do that type of thing enough. But at the same time, I think part of it is like I just understand how busy these people are, and I don't want to be that guy. So I don't know. It's something that I struggle with. But
you have to figure out a way to do it right for each level, right? Just to go from the first level and the next one.
Yeah. Totally.
Cool, man. Well, Brian, I think we've done a good job of being honest with ourselves about 2014, what we were able to do and what we were not able to do, and then 2015 coming up. I think everyone's going to be going through this, eating with their family, enjoying their time, hopefully getting some relaxation, hanging out with kids. But this as an entrepreneur, this never leaves you.
Yes.
These thoughts are in the back of your mind, and yeah, I'm ready to draw the crossbow string back and have it locked and loaded for 2015, right when the year turns, come out swinging.
Yeah, totally, man. Good episode, and yeah, to all you guys listening, happy holidays, and yeah, thank you guys so much for listening this year, and we'll be back next week with another one.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Cheers,
take
Brian.
care.
Talk soon.